Yo, hey, 8-ball strategy. Let's go. I was doing a review for one of the cult members, and I was watching. It was like a beginner. He's kind of beginner intermediate, I guess you'd say. And he's gonna kick me in the nuts if he ever meets me in person. No, he's a good dude. He's a solid player. But he's learning, just like we're all learning, right? I'm still learning. But when I was watching the review, they were playing he was a 5, she was a 3. So I guess that would mean that he's more of an intermediate if she's a beginner and he's spotting her 2 games. So there you go. I got there. But what I noticed is that 8-ball is a inside-out game. It's not an outside-in game. And when you watch players in the beginner to intermediate range, they play 8-ball. Once the balls are broke, they play it as an outside to inside game. But 8-ball really is an inside to outside game, meaning everything on the inside of the table, all the clusters, all the congestion, really the center of the table. Once you get to more of a advanced level, that's how you play it. You play all the trouble and congestions and clusters and things first, and you leave the outside basically for last, because it's easy to get the cue ball around when the middle is open, the middle of the table, and it's easier to get the cue ball around using the rails in 8-ball. A lot of times you're going side to side or up and down in 8-ball, because 8-ball is a stop roll game. So you would think, well, if the balls are in the middle of the table, then it's easy to make a stop shot. It is, but the side of the angle that you're on matters, right? And so when you have that rail, all you need is an angle, and you can get that cue ball to go almost anywhere. When the object ball's in the middle of the table, you need to have the correct angle to get the cue ball to go where you want easily. Otherwise, you're forcing it, and that's not the way we want to play pool. We don't want to force things in pool. We want everything to be as natural as we can, meaning we want the ball to be rolling naturally or on natural paths to our next shot. But the concept is changing your mindset and realizing that as you develop as a pool player, as you go down the road of playing 8-ball on a bar table or whatever leagues, that's kind of what my audience is, or my membership group is beginner to like 550 range. And of course there's advanced players that hang around, watch my stuff, and are members of the cult. But in general, it's a bar table 8-ball crowd playing leagues. And so that's why I have the Run Out series that focuses on these concepts that I just named off. Congestion, clusters, clearing the center, zone play with your pattern. This is all Run Out concepts that I have videos and PDFs to teach people. And so, but if you watch my reels, so I don't know, I might have 100 reels of 8-ball runouts with a BK Rush, or sometimes my regular cue, but a lot of times just with a BK Rush. And if you watch those runouts, I'm always clearing my trouble first, and I think in general, not all the time, but in general, the concept is I'm typically working from the inside of the table to the outside of the table. Like I said, not always, but it's a thought that you could have about 8-ball that I'm sharing with you guys, and you could start watching. In beginner pool and intermediate pools, it's very apparent if you were to look for this. And this is why I have this concept that I call it 6-2, meaning one player typically has 6 balls and the other player typically has has 2 balls. And the reason why is that after the break, the outside of the rack gets picked off, and it's kind of random, or pretty random when I watch intermediate to beginner to intermediate pool. It's just shooting the open balls basically, which are, when you break, if you think about it, especially if you don't have a crusher break, and even if you do have a hard break, the center, they go out and they come back to center, and there's congestion and things, and tied up balls, and just balls that are sort of covering other balls, so they're hard to get at. That's the way 8-ball ends up after the break or while you're playing the game. And so normal beginner to intermediate play is everybody fights for those open balls, just because they all want to run balls. Everyone wants to run balls, and everyone wants to make balls because making balls is fun, right? Yay, pool. But strategically, it's a bad strategy, because if you run off the majority of your group, and they're all near pockets and around the perimeter, then you're left with a ball or 2 or 3 that are trapped against an opponent's ball, or trapped against the rail, or trapped against the 8-ball, or whatever. And the problem is that you run off your 4, there's 3 left or 2 left, and then your opponent has all these balls, and they're typically scattered around the perimeter. So it's very hard for you to, if you have only 2 or 3 balls left, to play safety. And it's very hard because you don't have like breakouts typically, because you shot all those balls off, and you didn't, like, you could have positioned them towards your trouble and been a little patient. That's the way to do it. But if you just shoot them off out on the outside of those clusters, then you don't have any breakout balls, you don't have any insurance balls, things like that. So if you watch, I don't know, we just did a Scotch doubles mic'd up thing, and we played, I don't know, we took some time, we played, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 games. And if you watch the way that I was coaching and deciding with Perry, a lot of times we were trying to bait them into running balls. I said it was a joke, but that's actually the way to play, is to let your opponent shoot the inferior group and run out the 4 balls around the perimeter, and then start having problems with the tied up balls. You kind of want that to be your opponent, and you to be the person with more balls that can have balls available to play safeties off of, to leave difficult shots. You don't even have to hook them. You can just have a ball that you can chip into and leave a really tough angle or a long shot. See, if you don't have that material, you can't really, you have less options, right? And I know when you're at the beginner to intermediate level, running balls is tricky. So I get the idea is like, well, I know people do this. They race to the 8-ball. They want to just race to the 8-ball. It doesn't matter if 2 or 3 balls are tied up, as long as they can like make 3 or 4 balls and feel like I'm playing good and making balls and this is fun. And then switch to, well, now I got to figure out how to deal with all these problems before the other person catches up, and maybe I can get to the 8-ball first and pocket the 8-ball. I mean, seems reasonable, but there's a different way to play the game, and it's a more full version of playing the game, which is bringing in strategy, because that's not strategy. Shooting open balls and then plinking away at your 2 or 3 trouble balls and trying to race to the 8, that's just playing random pool, which is fine. If that's what you want to do and you have fun doing that, that's great. It just doesn't it doesn't scale into anything beyond a certain level of pool. That can be fun. It can be fun if you're playing with your pals and you guys are just knocking balls in, and that doesn't matter, right? But that's not what we're doing, because I'm a teaching and training channel. So if that's the case and you're watching this and you're interested in pool, Well, strategy is a big part of pool, right? And it's not just what ball to shoot in what order, i.e. patterns, even though that's a big part of what I teach on all these run out concepts and pattern ideas. There's another part of strategy, and that is when to shoot a ball in and when not to shoot a ball in, and how to play safe, and what is a safety. It doesn't always mean that the person's hooked. I'm going to get ball in hand. That's kind of a beginner mindset of safety. There's a strategic way to play a safety where you can let them shoot a ball in to get rid of their ball and not get on their next ball. And the advantage that gives you strategically is that shooting in that open ball that you left them that didn't lead to anything, when they have, let's say, 3 balls left and you have 5 or 6. Well, if you leave them a shot that's not safe, quote unquote, like traditionally a safety, like people think, but it's a defensive shot, and it's a safety, and it's an intentional shot, and they shoot in one of their last 3 balls, well, they're shooting in a ball that they could potentially use as insurance if they end up knocking out their other ball, or meaning when you break a ball out, you want to have a ball near a pocket if possible, so that you can't predict the randomness of the breakout. So you want to have an insurance ball. You want to have a ball that's near a pocket that you can shoot in case you need to, right? Or in case you need to re-break the balls. That's even better. If you have a break, this is like ideal. This is why you do it right away, because like immediately on your first or second shot you break out the trouble, and the reason why is because you have multiple balls a lot of the time that you can get on, and then also if you shoot that ball in and you don't get the breakout, you might have like a secondary or even like 2 balls that you could re-break that stack that trouble with. So I call it like rip and run. When I play, I decide if I'm going to try to run the rack out. One of the things I decide in the group decision are there 2 options or even 3 to get into this trouble, and are 1 or 2 of those options, are they in front of a pocket, so they're insurance balls? So I blend all this out in my head, and then I decide whether or not to run out. But who cares? That's advanced, right? We're talking beginner to intermediate. And what I'm saying is, strategically, we have to learn these strategies so that we can grow our game, right? So if we can get comfortable with having 2 of their balls on the table and us having 5 or 6 balls on the table, and we can practice our strategy from there, meaning we don't have to run 5 or 6 balls. 8 ball is not a 1 inning game until you can run 7, 8 balls. So there's a time from the moment that you start playing pool and 8 ball, let's say in leagues, until you hit a pretty high level statistically, like Fargo wise or whatever, to be able to run a full rack of balls. Okay. Now, I'm not saying people can't randomly shoot balls in and get runouts. That happens. That's the thing, right? You can break, and they can be pretty open, and they can be shot in almost any order, and the cue ball can go racing around the table and run into stuff, and then a runout can happen. That's good, and that's fine, and that's fun, and yay pool. But what I'm saying is, statistically, there's a chart that says at certain Fargo rates, you can run a certain amount of balls. And I've watched enough pool and played enough intermediate beginner leagues in the last year or so, and played enough Masters League where I've seen guys that are Masters level players that can't run racks when they're open because they choose the wrong group, when they shoot them in the wrong order, and then they play bad strategy, right? They don't clear their trouble right away, and they end up playing even that Masters level I've seen play that exterior to interior decision making and style of strategy, and so it's not like new pool. People just kind of learn that way, and they end up that way, and then they just get better at things. They get better enough at the various skills of pool that they can play poor strategy at a higher level. Okay, but what I'm saying is, let's try to start thinking about strategy differently for 8-ball. Let's start thinking about positioning balls instead of running balls. Meaning, if you have 5 balls on the table, running off the 6 balls on the table, running off everything around the perimeter that's open might not be the right call, because if you run everything off, you're not going to leave yourself any breakouts or insurance balls or all those stuff that I was talking about for those last balls. You're just going to end up chasing them around in circles. And then even if the player that you're playing, if you have 2 balls and they have 6, even if they're not like a real intentional player, they randomly have opportunities to hook you, right? So there's just more landmines out there that you can get hooked on randomly. Okay, so it's like, let's try to start thinking about ways that we can get ourselves in that 6 position, let our opponents be in the 2 position. That means you might break and have 1 open shot and think, well, it's a stripe, but I don't want stripes, I want solids. This happened yesterday with the lesson. And basically, it was a very simple decision. It was I just hit a 2-rail shot on the stripe and banked it up table into space and left the cue ball long and left them an opportunity to shoot a stripe when solids were the right group. And that's definitely a way to do it, right? It's like, you don't see it, okay? You don't see pool played where someone has an open ball and they don't shoot it. You have to get up towards 700 to see that, because even in the mid 600s, I watch plenty of 650 pool, and I see the same thing. And I've even seen it on other videos I've mentioned. I watched a 680 play in a tournament we were playing, a team event. Guy's like a 685, and I watched the match and the game, and if he didn't run out and he had an open opportunity, if he didn't run out, I was going to play. Like, our player could win if he wasn't going to run out, because she was going to be in a 5'2", 6'2" range, and she's good enough to run out that many balls, or play safety and be an advantage during the game. So it was good. So anyways, I watched the guy, and he has a ball that he's on that doesn't look covered, but it is. And I'm like, well, this guy, if he doesn't shoot this ball at this time, he had 4 or 5 balls on the table. I go, if he saves this ball for last, we're going to win this game. And he passed on it. And so I went and got my cue ready, because I knew that we were going to win the game. It's like, what do you call it? I don't know. I willed it into existence. But anyways, not him making the wrong decision, but just us winning the game. But so he doesn't shoot that ball. And then 4 balls later, he's back cutting it, and the cue ball's running around the table. He makes it and gets hooked on the game. And it was like very clear to see that was a very likely outcome. And this guy's a 685 at the time, or 680 at the time. And I'm saying that this stuff is, it's missing from pool. The strategy part of 8-ball is very, very much missing. And people, and I think that, I'm trying to think, One Pocket is a game that is a heavy strategy game. It's a moving game, meaning you're moving the cue ball and the object ball around the table. It's not a run out game. It's a moving game. Even though running out, Tony Chohan runs out 8 and out, and Fedor and all these guys run out racks, or 8 and out. So running balls in straight pool, I'm not straight pool. One Pocket at a high level that exists, of course, but in general, at the non-elite level, One Pocket's a moving game, and 8-ball, it's a run-out game. I think people really, really like running out, and I get it. I run out. I do run-outs on reels. I do run-outs on things. I teach a run-out game, with these concepts for the joint members. But while you're coming up and learning to be a run-out player, positioning the balls and understanding it's an inside-out game and there's a lot of strategy behind the game is going to be super beneficial. You're gonna just be able to win more games and go up a lot faster. If you just rely on run-out execution to build your 8-ball game and you're consistently shooting the outside open balls and leaving the inside balls, it's going to take years and years and years to move up in that game. It just is. It just takes a long time to play an inferior strategy and just outwork it with ball pocketing and cue ball control and all that stuff. But if you can play a good, solid strategy and you can position the balls in front of pockets near breakouts instead of shooting them in, and you can learn to at least move your trouble into the open and maybe stop thinking, okay, I know it's going to blow your mind, but maybe stop thinking that ball locked against their ball, I'm going to save it until the end of the game because it's in front of their ball and they can't make their ball. Well, that'll just turn into a game of 8-ball where you each end up shooting the outside balls towards the inside, and you're always down to 1 or 2 balls apiece at the end, and they're usually locked against each other. And so, yes, you could be like a defensive player from there and say, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shoot all the open balls. They're going to shoot all the open balls. We're going to get down to 1 or 2 balls apiece. They're going to be locked against each other. And then from there, I'm going to be an endgame master. If you tell me that is your strategy, that's at least a strategy. And I would say, okay, I can get on board with that. If that's more fun or that's more interesting. But what I'm saying is, at least that's a strategy. Okay, so good. But I don't think that people are doing that intentionally. I think it just ends up that way. Or if they are doing it intentionally, they don't understand how poor that strategy is, because there's other ways to play strategy where you can position balls so that their ball is in a bad spot and your ball is in a good spot, but yet your ball can be pocketed. And that takes some moving of the balls around and some intentional thought. Yeah, so that's it. So that's your strategy talk for today. I've been a little bit dark on the content because I've been out there on the grind trying to make some money on the side hustle hardwood flooring project with Jolie Poo and TJ Beast Mode Steinhaus. So, okay, that's all I got. This one will be free 99. And check out joining the cult and learning more about these concepts and learning more about the strategy, learning how to elevate your game. I have 25, 50, 75, 100 Fargo Point training program within the Discord that members are following, and it's very, very laid out. It's marked runouts, it's drills that I teach, the scatter drill, the 50-80, the demon drill, and then there's a time frame. And basically what I lay out is in my experience or my recommendation of, if you train this much in this way and follow this program, we can find these increases in 6 months or a year, you know. So, and there's a lot of members that are following that program, and there's members that just use the runout series, but you pair that runout series, which has videos and PDFs explaining these runout concepts that a lot of them I just named off, and then you pair it with these drills to sort of teach yourself. So I'm out here teaching people how to teach themselves and save years, if not decades, off of their development, and to have fun, find joy, and be present, and all this stuff. So, okay, that's your infomercial. See you guys. Bye. Okay, this is a quick hitter part 2 to that 8-ball strategy. This is beginner to intermediate, even getting in towards advanced. So I've been teaching pool and have, over 100 members now, and we talk pool on Discord, and everyone engages in conversation, and I've been training dozens, if not hundreds of people over the last couple years. And this is the idea that I want to get across. 8-ball is not a run-out game at the beginner and intermediate level. I kind of touched on the first video. People can run out racks. Okay, I get it. You can break, they can be open, they can kind of get through them. But what I'm trying to get across with that video is that 8-ball is a strategy game. And even when, like, I can run a lot of racks of 8-ball, like 70% of the racks at points, you know, somewhere between 30 to 70%, depending how they're breaking and depending how they're laid out and all that stuff. So that's a really high run out ratio. I would say on average, it's, you know, during a league match, it's probably almost half the racks. Sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on factors. But what I'm saying is now, so I'm a run out player in 8-ball on a bar table. And if you watch me, like Jolie will watch me and he'll say, man, you go for everything. And it's like, well, that's because I understand the concepts that I talked about, the advanced concept where I was talking about secondary and third option breakouts and stuff. So if I break and the balls are tied up, but I look and say, well, I've got 3 different balls that can break into these problems, well, then I'm going to try to rip and run. And if I miss the first one, I'll go for the second one. If I miss the second one, I'll go for the third one. And so that's an advanced thing that if you look, you might think, well, the guy never plays safety, but that's not true. I play safety quite a bit. And I use all the concepts that I explained in the first video of positioning balls and taking multiple innings to run out balls, even open balls. If I have 6 or 7 open balls and they have 1 or 2 balls, I mean, yes, of course, I can run 7 open balls at a really, really high clip. But I don't always choose to run out the balls if they're not open. Maybe something's clustered so much that I want to send one of my balls down there, break out the cluster, and leave them a super tough shot that they'd have to like 8-rail bank to make, and it's frozen. So whatever, I'm exaggerating, but what I'm saying is, here's my takeaway. Finally, my final say on the whole thing is, we have to stop thinking about our like run out, and start thinking about strategy. The runouts will come over time of training and practicing and knowing runnable tables, right? So there's tables that are runnable and there's tables that aren't necessarily runnable, especially at the beginner and intermediate level. Let's talk intermediate. Beginner, they're not really going to run a table. Like, maybe you might get across a run out, you know, but intermediate level, let's say, the concept of trying to run out every single rack, it's just, you know, from the outside looking in, it's pretty nonsensical. And this is from a person that can run out a lot of racks, and I'm saying it's nonsensical to try to run out racks when they're not runnable. So we played that match with Perry and I in Scotch doubles, and it's like, there's just racks that aren't statistically runnable. Could you run them out? Yes, of course you could, but statistically, they're not ready. They're not open. They're not runnable. And that's the trick, is that if you relax on the runouts and you relax on, oh, I ran this many balls. I've heard beginners and players say that. And it's cool. It's good to have a 4 or 5 ball run. You know, they go to a tournament and they say, well, I ran 4 or 5 balls once. And it's like, that's cool, that's fun, yay pool, I get it. And that to me is more like, that's not a competitive pool player approach. That's a person just wanting to pocket balls. And that's okay. You don't have to be a competitive pool player to play pool. You could just be a person that enjoys pocketing balls and kind of shooting them in randomly without strategy, right? Because true strategy is to not shoot in your balls until they're ready, to position the balls, to do all the stuff I said in the first video. So if you're not doing that, you're just kind of playing pool. And the funny part is that I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm just saying that's not really competitive, like thoughtful, like intentional pool. So when I say competitive pool, it's thoughtful and intentional, and there's some detail to it, and there's strategy. Now, if you're playing pool just to pocket balls and you have like and your strategy is, I'm gonna race to the 8-ball and pocket as many balls as I can and try to run out, quote unquote, run a rack, run balls, and then I'm gonna just kind of try to hook them, when I don't have a shot. That's really not strategy. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think of, it's like in poker. That strategy would be like, I'm going to push all my chips in when I have aces and hope someone calls. And when I don't have aces, I'm going to fold, right? Well, that's a strategy, but it's not a winning strategy. And it's not a strategy that's going to maximize your ROI or your win rate or anything like that. It's just like a very basic strategy, right? So 8-ball, if you're playing 8-ball and you're playing competitively, meaning you're going to leagues, and if you put any results focus into your game, then I'm just going to suggest to you that learning true strategy and taking the time to learn strategy, the things I talked about in the first video, diving into that and letting go of just pocketing balls and trying to run out, you're going to play a lot better, a lot faster, and you're going to win more. And basically, if that strategy is not interesting to you, it's going to be a long road. That's it. And everybody, like most people, are on that long road. And that's why when I go in and I watch people play, they're kind of stuck where they are. So like, there's tons of members of the club that I was kind of around and watching, and it's a year later and they're playing exactly the same, right? They're not members of my channel. They're not studying what I'm teaching, because members of my channel are moving up fast. That's it. There's guys that are like, well, I've been doing this for 2 months and I've gone up X amount of points in league. One of my guy, Jerry, one of my students, he's gone up quite a bit in league. I mean, shockingly a lot. And he's not like some sort of dedicated trainer. He's just doing lessons with me every other week and working through these concepts that I'm teaching him, and he's improving and he's playing better. And this isn't a guy that's older, that started off as a beginner player with me, I don't know, 6 months ago, and he's gone up like 11 points in league, which is a big jump, right? Because there's guys that I see from a year ago that I used to know, and they're in the league and they're all dropping points. And the reason why is because they're using these old school training methods, and they're stuck on the Mighty X, and they're trying to fix their stroke, and they're shooting their balls off randomly and clearing out the outside, and then getting stuck on their last 2 balls, and then getting frustrated and starting to play worse. So if you want to avoid that, just join the channel, and I'll teach you how to get better at pool. And it's going to be strategy. That's it. If it's just shooting in balls, it's going to take you forever. But if you learn strategy, and the right strategy, and how to train, because that's what I'm teaching too, is how to actually practice. So if you like to practice and you're interested in puzzles and you like learning strategy, this is where you want to be. And this is how you're going to get improved the fastest. Because if you don't care about strategy and you just like shooting in balls, it's going to take forever, and there's a very good chance you're going to go backwards in your game through frustration and just kind of doing the same thing over and over and getting similar results and getting frustrated and going backwards. So that's all I got. It's a strategy game, and I'm here to teach your ass some strategy. Okay, bye.